Alright, this is going to be a video explaining what GitHub is and how to use it, such as how to create a repository, how to clone a repository, how to commit, push, and pull. So, to start off with, I want to explain what GitHub is. This is something we call version control or source control, and it is something we use in order to share files between devices, and we use it to collaborate so that multiple people can work on a project all at once and all have access to the most updated version of those files. I like to think of it as similar to a Google Drive in that everyone has access to that Google Drive folder, everyone can edit the files in it. The biggest difference is that we can't all do that at the exact same time like you can in a Google Doc. It's more so that we all have a folder we're working with together, and we are pulling files out and changing them and then putting them back in. And then in order for other people to get those changes, they're going to have to download those new updates. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in and explain how to use GitHub, and we're going to start with creating a repository. What I have open right now is called the GitHub Desktop app. It is an application that GitHub made to make using its source control a lot easier. Sometimes people will use GitHub through the command line. I do not necessarily like doing that, and I do not recommend anyone do that, especially if it's their first time using GitHub. So I'm going to show you how to use the app. You're going to need to create an account. You'll need to do that on the website, and you'll need to log in. Once you log in, you will be looking at a screen very similar to what I have pulled up right here. Now, I have a bunch of things over here on the side. If this is your first time using GitHub, you are not going to have those, but that's fine. In order to create a repository, what we're going to do is we're going to hit this Create New Repository on your local Drive button. Do not create a tutorial repository because, this is your tutorial. So we're going to just create a new one. Now, you can think of a repository as a folder, because that's exactly what it is. It's going to be a folder that is generated on your computer. Just like any other folder, we're going to need to give it a name. So I'm going to call this one Lewis Demo. You can give it a description if you like. I don't really need a description for this project. Maybe for some reason you do. Feel free to. It is optional. Next, we're going to choose a path. By default, GitHub will create a folder in your Documents folder called GitHub, and it will try putting your repository folder in that Documents GitHub folder. That's a pretty safe, reasonable place to store it, so if you're cool with it, you can leave it there. I like putting things on my desktop because I like being able to see them when I boot up my computer, so I have set my path as desktop, but feel free to change it to whatever you like. Next up is the git ignore, which is arguably the most important part. If you're familiar with Unity projects, which is what I'm going to be showing you how to set up, you might know about the library folder. The library folder is a folder that holds a bunch of files that are basically Unity's settings. So things like, what scene did you have open last? What was the last thing that you were selected on? Like, did you have a cube selected? Were you editing the transform component? It's mostly just like project setting stuff like that that doesn't really matter. And every time you reopen a Unity project, if the library folder isn't already in the project, it's regenerated anyway. And some of the files, even if they already have it, they get regenerated regardless. That's what makes zipping Unity projects so bulky and what makes it take so long. Well, GitHub has an option to completely ignore that folder. We can decide, hey, we're not uploading the library folder every time we upload our changes. In order to do that, we are going to scroll all the way to the bottom, or you can type in Unity, because GitHub Desktop has a git ignore file with a Unity template that can ignore that library folder. So make sure you set this up. While technically speaking, you can add a git ignore later on, it is much more tedious and a lot more temperamental trying to add the git ignore file after the project has already been created. So go ahead and set it up while you're on this creation screen. We don't need a license, so we are ready to go ahead and create a repository. And there we have it. Now, if you look in your Documents folder, you should see your git ignore. or sorry, not gitignore. You should see your repository folder. I'm going to go ahead and open up my folders, and actually, we're going to look at this on my desktop because I can show it to you there. If you look, I have it right here, my Lewis demo folder. I can see my repository. So that's exactly what I want. Now, back to the application. This folder has been created on my computer, but it doesn't exactly exist on the internet yet. And that's the whole point of using a repository, is that we want it to be available on the internet so that people can upload and download changes. In order for it to be visible online, we are going to need to publish our repository. And I'm actually going to open up GitHub on the website and show this to you so that you can see it for yourself. If I look at my GitHub home screen on my account, and I'm going to show more so I can see all my repositories. If I look for Lewis demo, I have demo projects because I've done this before, but that one that I just made, the one that is just called Lewis demo, doesn't exist yet. So I'm going to hit this publish repository button, and that is going to put it on the internet. Now it's going to prompt me one more time, do I want to change my name? In this case, I don't. I don't need a description, and I'm going to keep my code private. If you choose to turn this toggle off, it will make it so that anyone, whether they have an account or not, can look at your code and look at your project. I like to keep my code private. That way, only me and other people who I've invited as collaborators to my project can see the code. So I'm going to publish this. It's going to take a moment, and now it's online. If I go back over to GitHub and I refresh my screen, if you look, Lewis demo is now here. And it tells me it was created 2 minutes ago. So that's pretty accurate. That's about how long ago it took, or I created that actual folder. This leads me into the next part, actually setting up a Unity project inside your repository. Well, that's also really easy to do. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Unity Hub. And it's going to take some time because Unity always does. And we're going to go, let me pull this over to my other monitor. Now I'm going to create a new project. Since my repository is just a folder, and then I can upload and download files within that folder, what I want to do is I want to create a project inside that repository folder. Now, if you already have a Unity project, and you're just trying to put it in a repository, that's fine. All you have to do is drag your project folder into the repository folder, and that will do essentially the same thing. I don't have a project that I'm working with yet, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new one. So I'll do a regular 3D project, that's fine. I'll call this Lewis demo, and I'm going to change the folder. So Lewis demo on my desktop, like I said, I'm going to double click that to open it. I have this nice empty folder. Perfect. We're going to hit select folder. That's my new location for that project file. And then I can create. And it's going to go ahead and take some time, as it always does. But we will check back in once it's done. All right, so my Unity project has opened. It exists. I'm good to continue. I am going to go ahead and minimize this, and minimize this as well. And now, it looks like I have no changes, which shouldn't be accurate. That's because I haven't clicked on it yet. Once I click on the application, it will update. And there we go. There are all my changes. Now, if you notice, it says I have 13,541 files, which is not exactly what I promised you. I told you that the library folder would be ignored, and in order to properly ignore it, we have to make some changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open up my repository folder from my desktop, and I'm going to pull it over here. And I'm going to open up this gitignore file. So if I double click it, and once again it opened on another screen, so let me pull it over. Here we go. This is the point that scares a lot of students. They see the gitignore and they see all this text and they get nervous. Don't be nervous, because we're going to do something really simple. All we're going to do is we are going to delete the slashes before and after each one of these pieces of text at this top block. So library, temp, obj, build, builds, logs, user settings. And same thing on the other side. There we go. And that's it. We're done. I'm going to save this git ignore. I'm going to go ahead and close it and close this. And if I go back, my number has dropped drastically down to 28. So now the git ignore is properly hooked up. It's reading my library files correctly. We are all good. I do want to mention that when you open the git ignore, mine opened up in Notepad because I have my computer set up to do that. Yours might open in Visual Studio Code, and that's totally fine. Process is the same regardless, just delete the slashes. So now I have my changes. My change is that I imported a project. Well, now I need to do something called commit my changes. This is essentially saving your work as a single step. And it's important to think of it this way. This is saving this change or this group of changes to my computer. When I do that, I'm going to give it a summary. So in this case, all I did was create a project. So I'm going to say created empty project. And I'm going to hit commit to main. That is my save button. So I'm going to hit commit to main. It has saved it as a step. The reason I say it saves it as a step is because this does not actually upload your changes to the internet. This is the equivalent of you saving the Word document to your computer. You still need to upload the Word document to your online folder where everyone else can see it, but we have to start by saving it first. The reason I call it a step is because of this right here. If I look at this history tab, you can see I have initial commit, I have empty project. Every time I make a commit, it saves it in my history. This is important because if I were to do something that messed up the project, I can undo these steps. I could right-click, undo commit, or after I've uploaded my commit to the internet, I could revert my commit to undo a step as well. This is important especially because if you do too much work in one commit, note that if something breaks, you're going to have to undo the entire commit. So it's better to work in several steps, commit often. If you're working as a programmer on player movement, make your changes to the player movement script. Commit just that before you start working on other stuff like enemy AI or level design. Don't do a ton of work all in one step and then commit it because you are going to lose stuff that way if something breaks. So this is my one step. I have it done. I've saved it to my computer. All I want to do now is upload it to the internet. Committing it alone isn't enough. If I go back to my website and I refresh, you'll see that the most recent activity is still 9 minutes ago when I created the project, or when I created the repository rather. The project isn't in there yet. If I want to upload it online, what I need to do is hit this push origin button. So I'm going to push. That is pushing my files to the internet. And now we're good. If I go back and refresh my website again, you will see created empty project 2 minutes ago. It has my change. Now, for those of you who are working on a team, if someone else is working on your project and you just commit something and you just pushed it to your repository, they are going to have to do something called pulling. That means essentially downloading the change. Once you have a change or a commit pushed to your repository, that person is going to go on their GitHub application. They are going to hit this fetch origin button, basically refresh. And if there is something that they have not yet pulled to their computer, or if there is a change they have not yet downloaded, it will say the word pull, it will have a down arrow, and it will give you a number. And that number is how many changes you have to download. So if someone else were on my project right now, they would have one item to pull because I just pushed a change. And that's pretty much the whole cycle. You make your change, you push it to the repository, someone else pulls it. So that's the general rundown of how to use GitHub. A couple of things that I want to show you as well as far as how to work with others. when you have a repository and you want to add other people to it, you will have to add them as collaborators. You do this through the GitHub website. You do have to be on the website. This cannot be done through the application. You're going to go to your repository. So I'm going to actually start back on my feed. I opened up GitHub. I'm going to open the repository I'm working on. So let me type in Lewis demo. I'll click on it. You're going to go to the Settings tab. You're going to go to Collaborators. And it's making me sign in again. Hold on. Okay. And down here at the bottom, you're going to hit Add People. You're going to invite people to your project. You can either use their username or their email. Typically, email is the safest so that you can guarantee it's the right person, but I've done it all three ways, so it's really up to you. I happen to have another account for GitHub, so I'm going to go ahead and type in my other username. And then they'll appear, they're in the list, and then I can add them to this repository. So now I have 2 people on my project. The person who receives the invite will get an email, they can join the repository through there, and then all they have to do is put the project on their computer. I'll go ahead and show you how to download a project you're on. So, say for example, I'm someone who's joined a project and I'm trying to download it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to this top corner that says Current Repository. I'm going to click Add, and I'm going to click Clone Repository. Now, if you are opening up GitHub for the first time and you don't have any repositories, like we had on that very first screen, it's going to look a little bit different, but you still just want to hit Clone Repository from the internet. Same general process. So we're going to hit Clone, and it's going to give me a list of all of my repositories to choose from. Now, if you do not see the one that you just joined in this list, hit this refresh button, and it should load it. So I'm going to join a random one. We're going to join this demo project right here. And I'm going to hit Clone. Clone just makes a copy of that project on your computer, and it pulls all of the changes that are available. So the only thing that I have in this particular project is the initial commit. There's nothing else. That's fine. And then you're ready to start working. The last little thing that I wanted to mention are general things to be aware of. Since you guys are not working on the same file, like live together, and you are uploading and downloading changes, there is a very, very real danger of overwriting people's work. When you are working in GitHub, and when you're working on projects together, you need to be very careful that you are not overwriting your collaborators' work. To do that, the easiest way to avoid it is to collaborate. Tell people what you're working on. Don't work on the same files. When I say same files, this includes working on the same scene, on the same script, on the same model, on the same prefab. Anything that is the same, you should not work on at the same time. If someone says, hey, I'm working in scene 1, stay out of scene 1. Don't make any changes in it. Don't open it. Don't do anything. Let them finish their work. Let them commit their change. Let them push it to the repository. Then you can download or pull that change, and then you are good to continue working. As long as you're not working on the same file, you can work at the same time. So maybe my colleague is working in scene 1, but I'm working in scene 3 with completely different assets. That's okay. We can work at it on those 2 things at the same time. But if we're using the same prefab and we start making changes to it, that is where issues will start to arise. If you try to make changes to the same thing at the same time, you're going to hit something called a merge conflict, which basically means someone's work is getting erased. All in all, easiest solution is tell people what you're working on and be good about not opening things that other people say that they're doing. That should be about it. That should be enough to get everyone started. Hopefully this was informative and you are not terrified of GitHub. Don't be afraid of it. It can smell fear. Just use it confidently. It's okay to break things. And I hope that it helps you manage your projects better.